Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration, and glad to be here. Friday morning at 6:30 here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, and September 16th. Glad to be here. Glad it's Friday. Hopefully you're having a good morning, too. I just woke up a little while ago and just trying to wake up here having some coffee, and we'll get right into this. This is really just a morning reflection, look from one survivor, really, just looking at, my own healing journey, just and then sharing this information with you. So that's basically what this is about. Also, just to hold myself accountable so that I'll do the work and actually keep going in my healing journey instead of just putting it off to the side and not working on things. And so, it kind of keeps me accountable to make sure that I do some work, throughout the week towards my healing, right? My healing journey. And so, I hope the information is helpful for you as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into my shows. I appreciate it. If you're a survivor of abuse, you want to make sure you're safe enough to be listening to this. So do a safety checklist. And if you're not sure, sort of what that is or how to make sure you are safe enough, you can get that information from Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. That's a Morris Center program. It's a ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. It's a Survivor to Thriver workbook. It's a free download you can get from their website. And the first chapter is devoted to safety first. And it's about 60 pages long. It might be a little longer than that. It's a really good read, and make sure that you get that information from somewhere, and make sure you're safe enough to listen before you listen to anything like this, because you don't want to be triggered and then end up kind of having a miserable day and then just spiraling kind of downward in your healing journey. That's not good. So if you're not sure if you're safe enough to listen to this show or anything like this, really, then you should just turn it off, because you won't be hurting my feelings, right? And so we'll get right into this. This is we're picking up where we left off yesterday, and we're looking at an acronym from HAVOCA, 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 Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. It's an acronym that Cheryl put together. This lady Cheryl on the website there, Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse, and she said, really, this works for this is for anybody who's been abused in any way, not just sexual abuse. But she used the letters from the words adult survivors of sexual abuse. So we're on letter I in survivor, and this morning's is invite happiness into your heart, embrace your loved ones, family, and friends. Friendship truly is the gold thread that ties hearts together. Keep them close to your heart throughout your journey in life. And that's awesome. Well, friendship's very important, actually. I think it's. I think for myself, friendship is crucial. It's vital, and but I don't really need a lot of friends in my life. I just need some good friends. So I'm never really looking for all that many friends. But the friends that I have in my life, are awesome. So it's not about It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality. And so I think it's good to have some good friends in your life. I know for myself, I've lost lots of friendships over the years, mainly because of my own adult survivor issues, and I don't want to just blame them and just say, oh, it was all their fault, or just point the finger at them, or just point the finger only at myself, because it was a mutual thing. It takes two people to be in a relationship, and so in a friendship, it exists of two people. So it's like it's both parties always. It's never just one. And my problem was that I just don't deal with things properly. So if I feel like I've been wounded by somebody, I don't handle it very well, just because I was so wounded. But now that I'm on my healing journey and I know where my boundaries are, I've set boundaries and all kinds of that sort of thing. Really important work that I've done. And also just learning about what I will tolerate in a relationship, what I won't. And I just, have learned that I can be upfront and I can be honest with people. I don't need to try to just be a people pleaser, but yet, I can treat people with dignity, with respect, with care, with kindness, empathy, compassion and sympathy even, and be there for them, as I would like for them to be there for me. And realizing that, no one's the same. We're all different, and try to be good to people as I would like them to be good to me. I just don't allow abusive people into my life. That's all. And I just, keep those friends of mine who are really good friends of mine close in my heart all the time. And just try to think about them and not so much about what they can do for me, but, what I can do for them. And, I can't do much for people, but just try to be there for them, And I think that's important. So invite happiness into your heart. Embrace your loved ones, family, and friends. Friendship truly is the gold thread that ties hearts together. Keep them close to your heart throughout your journey in life. So I think that's awesome. Very nice. So we'll move on. We're looking at the inner child healing work that they have there on their website. This is help for adult victims of child abuse, Havoca. And you can go to their website, Havoca.org, and you can get all kinds of info there under the Survivor tab. If you go to the Survivor tab at the top there, just click on it and then look on the left-hand side of the page, and it's just there's lots of different information there for people who've been abused, and they have an inner child section, inner child healing. And first we looked at how to begin, why heal your inner child, learning to love ourselves, right? Loving the wounded child. We're on loving the wounded child right now. And they've written quite extensive articles about this stuff. And I think it's quite interesting. It's sort of similar to John Bradshaw's work, healing the shame that binds you, and also the Homecoming, healing the wounded inner child. Or let's see, what's the name of that book? Homecoming. I actually have it right here. Homecoming, John Bradshaw's Homecoming. It's Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child. This was very interesting. It's actually quite a large, lengthy book. And I did the work in this originally. Now I need to go back and do it again. The main portion of my healing, my inner child healing work, was done with this program called Your Envisioned Mind. And it's from a lady in Australia, Beverly Searle, Searle, Searle. And she put this together with another lady, really. They both worked on it to develop it, Kate Mitchell. And these two women developed this program, but Beverly Searle was really responsible, I guess, for the bigger part of it. And they both used it, and it's helped so many people out. It's a great program. They actually helped me get through a lot of my issues, and especially dealing with the child sexual abuse, using that program, Your Envisioned Mind. Because it works with the limbic system in the brain, which uses pictures, because the problem with abuse and trauma is that there's no words attached to it once the memories are in the brain. It's not a language with words, it's pictures, word pictures, it's pictures. So the limbic system is where this actually targets the limbic system, Your Envisioned Mind, and this program was really, really helpful for me. So I did the bulk of my inner child healing work with that program. And these two ladies helped me do that and helped me to get through it. And I'll be forever grateful for them for doing that. And so it's a good program. I thought it was very helpful, and it still, I think, really is sort of made the difference in my healing journey. Your Envisioned Mind. And so you can go there by just typing into your browser Your Envisioned, like ENVISIONED, Envisioned Mind. It used to be called Forget Talking Therapy, but they changed that to they just changed the name of it to Your Envisioned Mind, and they made the product more accessible for people. It was originally set up for targeted for therapists and counselors and psychotherapists and stuff, but she's actually made it so that people can get a hold of it and do self-help. Turned it into like a self-help program, so it is really good, and I used it. It worked for me. So I don't know if it will work for everybody. Everybody's different, but it did help me out. So this is their inner child healing work here from Havoca, and I think that it's kind of interesting. It does go along quite, I guess, similar to what John Bradshaw and Robert Burney were talking about. Robert Burney, he does a lot of work on codependence and healing the codependent sort of toxic part of ourselves that may have come about because of abuse. And he did a great bunch of work, and he's got a book called Codependence, The Dance of Wounded Souls, which is an awesome book, and it really helped me get through a lot of stuff as well. So it's Robert Burney, John Bradshaw, and Beverly Searle out of Australia, Your Envisioned Mind. Those are the three things that I used really for my inner child healing, and they really did help me a lot. So I'm very thankful to all three of them, really, for doing what they did, and that information was very good for me. So this is a lot right along the same lines of what they were talking about. So we'll pick up where we left off. Yesterday's was those of us who were horrified and deeply wounded by a perpetrator in childhood and were never going to be like that parent, adapted a more passive defense system to avoid confrontation and hurting others. The more passive type of codependent defense system leads to a dominant pattern of being the victim. So they said those of us who were disgusted by and ashamed of the victim parent in childhood and vowed never to be like that role model adapted a more aggressive defense system. So we go charging through life like the bull in the china shop, being the perpetrator who blames other people for not allowing us to be in control. And the perpetrator that feels like a victim of other people not doing things right, quote unquote right, which is what forces us to bulldoze our way through life. And they say here, and of course, some of us go first one way and then the other, since we all have our own personal spectrums of extremes that we swing between, sometimes being the victim, sometimes being the perpetrator. Being a passive victim is perpetrating on those around us. So they go on to say the only way we can be whole is to own all the parts of ourselves. By owning all the parts, we can then have choices about how we respond to life. And by denying, hiding, and suppressing parts of ourselves, we doom ourselves to live life in reaction. So I think that's really interesting, and that's kind of true, really, especially that last part. By denying, hiding, and suppressing parts of ourselves, we doom ourselves to live life in reaction. I lived my whole life in reaction until I was really made progress on my healing journey. I was just reacting to the abuse that I suffered as a child, and then reacting to all the problems that stemmed from it in my adult life, and that I had never reached out and got any help. So I was always just reacting. I just continued on in that really dysfunctional way of living, and until I started getting help, then I started to see how I was reacting, why I was doing what I was doing, self-sabotaging, why I was having so many difficulties. I started to see. I looked at it kind of as a third-party person would look at it, and realized that I needed to actually get through to I was never really in denial or hiding, but I used to suppress the abuse and just push it down. I didn't want to deal with it. And once I started dealing with it properly, then I started to realize that I have choices about how I can deal with this thing. I don't have to allow myself to spin out of control. I don't have to allow myself to go into those pits of despair that I used to fall into sort of naturally. And so I realized that I could change things in my life. And once I started to realize that, it was like, wow, there's no reason why I should continue on in that, in that destructive, really dysfunctional way of living. I want to have a good, healthy life. I want to be doing the best that I can every day to make the right decisions for myself and to make the right decisions for the people that I'm in relationship with. And so, on my part, right? And I thought I can do this, and it's been helpful to actually to be able to do that. I know that there's people, like just people that I know, for instance, in my own family, which without naming names, who are in denial. They don't want, and they wish they could get help. They've even told me that they wish that they could be on a healing journey and stuff. They don't realize that they can, but they need to do the work, and it's a lot of work going through all this stuff. Doing all this homework and reading. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of work. Or just joining a group if you don't like to read. I joined an anonymous survivors group years ago, and it was very, very helpful to do that. This way, I just joined an anonymous one just because I thought, well, I just want to join anonymous. I don't want anybody to know who I am. And this was when I first started my healing journey, and it was very, very helpful. So, whatever your needs are, we just need to make sure. You need to make sure that you're getting your needs met. And for the first time maybe in life, from coming from abuse, to me, knowing that, as a child, we couldn't do anything about it. But as an adult, it is our responsibility to get help. So it's interesting what they said here. Those of us who were disgusted by and ashamed of the victim parent in childhood and vowed never to be like that role model adapted a more aggressive defense system. And so, it's like this whole thing of passive, or aggressive defense systems, and some of it is passive aggressive too. I looked at that here on Blog Talk Radio. I spent 6 months or a year looking at anger management and looking at the different types of this kind of stuff, like aggression, aggressive, passive aggressive stuff. It was very helpful to take a look at that, and because I could see where I was in it, and really interesting to look at that. So I got that from angerresources.com. I think if that website's still up there, I think it's called angerresources.com. And that was really interesting. Because anger's not a bad thing. It's just that when it's distorted and twisted, then it becomes a problem, right? Distortions of anger. So anger itself is not bad. We do need to allow ourselves to be angry. But it's what we do with it and how we treat people around us, that it becomes a problem. And so, I think that a lot of people could maybe relate to this, but not everybody, because she's talking about a situation where if somebody's is in been sort of brought up in an abusive home. She's talking about growing up with parents who may have been the victim parent, right? Someone in the home who was the victim, whether it was the mother or the father, or whether it was whoever the sort of victim parent might have been. This is sort of where she's gone with this, but not everybody can relate to that, because some people were abused by somebody else in some other situation, right? And so you may not be able to relate to that. I relate to most of this because I did grow up with two abusive parents. Both of my parents were brought up on abuse charges, and they were highly abusive to each other and to the children. They just set this life of horror up for us, really, and from birth, right, for all of my siblings as well as myself. So it's kind of, I sort of relate to what she's talking about, but not all the time, but for most of it. But I think for some people it may not be able to relate because they might have had a great their parents may have been, or whoever their caregivers were treated them well and were loving and caring. So not everybody can relate to this stuff, but this is just sort of what she's talking about here. So we'll move on to the next part of this, and we'll pick the rest of this up. Actually, it's a little bit more to go here. We'll pick that up on Monday. And so positive reinforcement. What are we doing right in our daily walk? What am I doing right? Looking at the positives instead of the negatives. And instead of just being negative all the time, oh, I didn't get this done, or I should have done that. That's so easy to do. Right? Anybody can do that, because not everybody. I would say, I would venture to say that most people don't accomplish everything that they want to every week. Every day of every week, right? Things come up, things happen, things get pushed off to the side. So it's too easy to get real down and negative on ourselves. I should have done that, or I didn't do this, or especially being a survivor of abuse, being made to feel. Some of us being made to feel, lesser than, or, not good enough, not capable, this kind of stuff, right? So I don't want to get too hard on myself. I do the best that I can every day. That's about the best I can do. At the end of the day, when I go to sleep, just before I go to sleep, I just have to sit there and think, well, I did the best job I could. That's all I can do with this day, right? We'll try again tomorrow, and I think that's important. But what am I doing that's positive? Just continuing on my healing journey is really good, and staying, strong, and just realizing that I can do this, and I can get through what I need to do to make it, and knowing that I could reach out for help. That's a big one. Because for so many years I didn't trust people enough to reach out for help, and I just suffered on my own in sadness and silence and horror, really. So I'm glad that I've realized that I can reach out for help. That's another big one. And also, in our positive affirmation here for this morning is, I am joyful. I like that. I'm joyful. I didn't used to be able to say that. I'm joyful. I used to have a problem with joyfulness. I didn't even understand it, really. I didn't know. I thought, well, people wouldn't see joy in me at all, even though inside my heart I can feel joy. And I understand joy, and I really... And I love joy, right? It's awesome. It's a good feeling to have joy in your life, And for so long I didn't have any joy, and I thought, well, my joy was killed, and murdered a long time ago. Back when I was killed and murdered a long time ago as a child. And so I didn't really exhibit joy, but I could still experience it, when I got older, as an older adult. And I thought, people don't probably see joy in me, because I'm not overly open about my joyousness. I'm not. It's not that I'm such a serious person. I like to laugh, and I actually really enjoy having a good time. But I'm not one of these people that just runs around just gleefully being joyful. I actually have a lot of joy in my heart for a lot of different things, and a lot of different reasons. But it may not be very, very visibly clear to people that I am joyful. But I know that it's there, and I never really could feel it when I was younger because of the abuse. And now, as an older adult, I know that, throughout most of my adult life, I've been able to experience joy. And so it's an awesome thing. And so I don't necessarily appear to be joyful, but actually I really am in many areas of my life. And I'm very thankful and grateful for the good things in my life, because I've been through so much horror and so much hell, really, as a child, that I recognize good things, really. Even just the really small stuff is very important to me. Actually, the small things are actually more important to me than the big things. So it's just waking up every day, with a roof over my head. I'm very happy to have that. I'm very joyful about that. And I don't own anything. I'm just really kind of making it check to check all the time, paycheck to paycheck, and that's okay. Because I think about these other people around the world who don't have a roof over their head, even in my own country, but especially around the world, who have no idea where they're going to get their next meal. They're probably, many of them will die. So many thousands, right? Little children and people who are sick. Can't get the medications that they need. They're just going to die. And I'm living in North America, so I try to keep everything in perspective. And I'm very thankful to have what I have. I don't worry about trying to keep up with the Joneses next door or something like that. Oh, I gotta get this. There's no way I could do it. I'm just not. I don't have that type of wealth to be able to do that. But that stuff doesn't make me happy anyway, right? I don't care about that stuff. I'm really happy that my husband's still alive. He's terminally ill. He's very, very sick. He might end up in the hospital today. He's going to make a decision whether he wants to go in. Quite often, he does end up in the hospital a couple of times per year, and he hasn't been to the hospital now for almost 2 years, a year and a half. So that's pretty good that we kept him out of the hospital for a year and a half, and I think I'm joyful about that. But he may go in there today, but I'm just thankful for every day. See, I don't worry. I'm just thankful for every day because tomorrow is not guaranteed. Tomorrow's not promised, right? And so it's just today. Really, I got to be thankful for. So I do have joy in my heart, and I think it's important. I get these positive affirmation quotes from a website called www.heartswithsoul.com, and you can go there. It's /child abuse. They actually have a tabs. It's called www.heartswithsoul.com. That's where I got these positive affirmations. They're really cool. And so, yeah, I am joyful. I think that's just awesome. And I can go around saying that all day and be joyful for the small things and for the really important things in my life, And we're all different, so what's important in my life may not be important in yours. But whatever you find joy and happiness in, we can walk around and say, I'm joyful. That's awesome. Self-care, what are we doing to care for ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually? What do I need to work on? I'm working on mainly the physical stuff now. I'm going to try to do some beginning yoga this weekend. I'm going to try to set up even just a half an hour of time to go through and do some beginning yoga, just stretching and stuff like that because I'm getting very stiff. I'm getting older and out of shape. And I used to work physically in restaurants and kitchens cooking, and I was a sous chef for a while, and I was kind of the night supervisor and always had to be responsible. Making sure things got done, and I was actually in really good shape because I was able to run circles around the kitchen staff. So I used to be in pretty good shape, and for somebody who's not really all that healthy or that physically well, I was actually still in pretty good shape. And now, for the last few years, I've been sort of just because of my husband's health, my health's kind of going down because I basically don't get any exercise because I'm with him, watching over him basically 24 hours a day, right? Because his health is so bad. So I don't get much exercise, so I'm like, I got to start doing something. So yoga is something I want to start doing just so I can stretch and meditate and, just do some stretching and stuff. I think that's awesome. So I'm just going to try to just learn the beginning yoga stuff. And also I'm working on rowing. I like that. I like to row, and I bought a rower, and I just working on getting on that every day. So that's important. The other stuff, spiritually I'm in good shape, and emotionally I'm in good shape. I did have some sort of flashback stuff going on, like I was saying, and issues like that, but things are going pretty good. Otherwise, I feel pretty good. So we can check to make sure, see how we're doing and how we're feeling, and see what we need to work on, and what we could do to help ourselves, right? If we don't take a look at it and get in touch with it, maybe journal, right, so that we don't forget what we were thinking about. Journaling is very important. Or just write it down somewhere, because it's too easy to forget. It's like, oh, what was I thinking about? It was really a good idea, and then I didn't write it down, so I forgot. So it's a good idea to have some paper and pen by paper, or use your computer or whatever. And I journal both ways. I actually journal on my computer as well as on paper. Just depends on where I'm at. And so, it's a good idea to journal and write things down. How am I feeling? How am I doing? What do I need to work on? What do I need? What are my needs, really? As growing up abused, many times our needs actually were completely neglected. And we were talking very, very vital and fundamental needs, right? So we do have the right to get our needs met. So Avoca here has a It's a survivor's bill of rights. You can go on their website, and they have this section for in the domain of psychotherapy or like therapy or counseling. Right, we have the right to, and this morning's is to telephone your therapist between regular scheduled sessions in urgent need, and have the call returned within a reasonable time. Now that's our right, but I've heard lots of people tell me that they've tried to get a hold of their therapist and it's impossible. They never get a call back and stuff. And I'm like, well, then it's time to get another therapist. If you don't have a therapist that actually cares and really can do something to help you, or at least, and if they can't help you, find somebody who can. Referrals, right, to somebody that they think might be able to help a little bit better in the situation. Then I'd look for another one, because they are right. We do have rights. So we have the right to telephone our therapist between regular scheduled sessions in urgent need, right, and have the call returned within a reasonable amount of time. I think that's awesome. We do have rights. Charles H. Whitfield has a personal Bill of Rights thing, and it's from his book, Healing the Child Within, and we are on number 32. He's got 38 of these. And these are personal rights for survivors of abuse, right? We're on 32. I can be healthier than those around me. Now, I don't know what he means by healthier, whether that's physical health or, emotional health, right? Emotional well-being or physical well-being. Right? I can be healthier than those around me. I don't know if I so much care about that. I don't necessarily always want to be the bigger one, the better one, the healthier one than those people around me. I don't think like that. I'm not sure why. I think it's because I grew up the last of 7 children. And so, and all my siblings were much older than me. Like the next closest sibling to me was 5 years. So I really didn't grow up with anybody. I grew up in a house with 7 children, but none of them were around except for, certain periods in the home. They were there, but we didn't play together. You know what I mean? Because all my siblings were much older than me, and they all had their own friends, and there was a lot of abuse and dysfunction. And my older brothers and mainly my older brothers were doing drugs. Some of the older siblings had already moved out when I was born, 2 of them. So nobody was really around to play with. So I spent a lot of time by myself, on my own, time. So I never really had this, I'm going to be better than you, or I'm going to do better than you. And I never developed that in my youth either. It was never really always trying to be the top guy or be the top winner this or the better that. And I think that's sort of just how I live my life. I'm really not interested in being better than everybody else or being healthier than everybody else. I think what it is I just have the right to I can be healthy like those around me that are healthy. I'd really rather say that. I can be healthy like those people around me that are healthy. And their example just shines out to me. People that are taking good care of their body, people that take good care of themselves, of their lives and of their emotional health, their psychological well-being, their physical well-being, spiritual well-being, right? I always look up to people like that, and I sort of strive to be like that. So I'm not really a jealous person. I don't need to be better than everybody else, right? I'm not really into that whole challenge thing of, I got to do everything better than everybody else. I really don't care. It's like I'm not in the game to try to win over somebody else. What I do is I like to appreciate what other people are doing, and if I see somebody who is a good example or a shining light sort of thing, I mean, it's always really nice because I'm happy for them, you know what I mean? And then I think, wow, I could try to do that. I could try to take better care of myself, sort of lead, they're sort of a light in the dark, for somebody like me who really needs a sort of positive a hand, in getting in the right direction many times for certain things, right? So I'm not really one of those people that has to be better or healthier or doing better than somebody else. I'm really not in competition with people, so I don't care. We have about a minute left here. So we'll pick up the rest of this, I guess, on Monday. So we have about a minute left here. And I just really wish you a good weekend. I hope that you'll reach out and get some help if you're struggling. If you're not sure how you're going to make it, you call a crisis line. You do whatever you have to do. You call somebody, you call, and you get help, right? Do not struggle on your own. And otherwise, I just wish you a really good weekend. And take good care of yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Remember to do something kind for yourself, each day that goes by. Be good to yourself, and take good care of yourself. And we will talk to you on Monday. Bye, everybody.